Welcome to another episode of the Quip Corner's Book Corner. I know I shouldn't choose favorites, so I won't choose favorites. But my guest has been here before. You'll see her bio right after this. Please join us in the Book Corner. Welcome back to the
Glad to be here.
Corner's Book Corner, Miss Anna.
It's good to be back. And as I often say at the beginning, when you tell me welcome back, I tell you how glad I am to be here, not just to talk about my books, but to have an opportunity to talk with you and possibly share with you and your audience some of what it is like, not just to write a book, but in this case, to write a book about a family member. This one will be called Grampoppa. And as we move along today, I'll tell you why I chose to write a picture book with poems about this special man in my life.
Okay. Just before we dive into that, I'd like to congratulate you on World Teachers Day, October 6th.
That's right. That is World Teachers Day. And I'd love this opportunity to share with you that one of my mentees from the 2008 cohort of early careers of educators of color, Shakima Dunlap, defended her dissertation yesterday, and the university consented to award her, well, not award her, but to confer on her a Doctor of Education Leadership. And among those in the call was an educator from the island of Guam, and talking about World Education Day. Just yesterday, I had an opportunity to sit in on one such day. And so I forgot the day was today, and I'm glad you're here to tell me. And I got a chance to share what one of the young ladies that I've had an opportunity to mentor has accomplished just yesterday.
Nice, nice. Congratulations.
Well, congratulations to her and her husband and family.
Well, you're part of her story. So.
Okay, I'll take that. All right.
So, Grampoppa?
Grampoppa. Just a little tiny background. As many of you know from opportunities I've had to be on here, I am an educator. And one year when I was living in California, I had an opportunity to take a summer program at the University of California in San Diego. It was through the National Writing Project. And in that particular program, it's the one where teachers teach teachers how to teach writing. And they said one of the best ways to become a better writing teacher is to write yourself. And so in this all-day program for 5 weeks during the summer, we would meet in the morning where a teacher would share a strategy for writing. We'd have lunch, and then we'd have an hour where we were to do what we had learned in that morning. And then not just do the writing, but we had to meet in small groups and share what we had written that morning. Well, one of the ladies in that group eventually came to teach at the school where I was teaching. And when the public began to look for more books with positive depictions of different colors of people and different cultures, and more diverse races, she says, Anna, why don't you publish that poem that you wrote that summer? I said, what poem? She said, that poem about Grampoppa. I said, how do you remember that? That was 10 years ago. She says, I remember much of what you wrote, and I think this would make a great picture book. I said, but that means I'd have to hire an illustrator. And she says, do it. I said, how? She sent me a check. And through the program called Fiverr, an international group of artists who offer their services for usually new authors, I met an author named Atanayaki, Jayamini Atanayaki from Sri Lanka. And she said, I'd be glad to do it. What do we need done? And I said, well, here's the poem that I wrote. I would like to make a picture book that illustrates the story of my grandpapa. And that was quite a challenging experience for both of us. She reads and writes English, but did not know much about American culture, particularly African American culture. And when
Yeah.
I would write a note asking her, I'd like a picture of a man, my grandfather was a minister, a pastor sitting on the pulpit, she would send a picture that looked something like this,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't have a cross on it.
Yeah.
And I said,
Yeah.
most Christian pulpits would have a cross on it. And so I
Mm-hmm.
had to put one on there. Another week, I asked her to send a picture of a man standing in front of a small church in a small town in the South. She had no idea what I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And another time I mentioned I'd like a picture of my grandmother uh, taking a meal into my grandfather because he was not well at that time. And the picture she sent me was a woman attired in attire that would probably be seen more on the island of Sri Lanka than in Detroit, Michigan. So over the course of that almost a year that we exchanged, I learned that knowing a language is not the same thing as knowing a people.
Oh, yeah.
And thankfully, she was patient. Thankfully, I wanted the book to be published. And over time, I would begin sending her pictures of what I wanted illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, we came up with the pictures for this book.
Nice.
And
Nice.
probably most encouraging to me was by the time we finished, I said, what should we put on the cover? And I couldn't think of any particular picture from the book that I wanted on the cover. And so I asked her, says, Jayamini, what have you learned about my family and my grandfather as a result of the drawings that you have created for this book?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it's a family that learns together. I
Mm.
said, how do we learn together? She said, from reading the Bible. I said, yes, you got it. And so that's the drawing that
Oh,
she created
yeah.
of our family, my grandfather sitting in the middle, grandchildren sitting and kneeling on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not certain who each of the people is in the picture, but it does show a family learning together.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is my grandfather only had a sixth grade education, but he never gave up studying. In fact, one of the pictures in the book is one of my most memorable ones of him, of me as an adult, going back to visit them in their home in Detroit, of him sitting in the front room. At that time, uh, particularly in African American communities who could afford new furniture for the living room, they would
Okay.
also often cover them in
Yeah.
plastic cover.
Yes. No
And we
stains.
had one, you know about that, one of those French provincial chairs covered in plastic. So it would look good. But there, my grandfather would be sitting with a book, often the Bible, on his
Mm.
knees, studying. And that's one of the pictures that Jayamini uh, did for us
Yeah.
because he never gave up studying. He said, I
Mm.
don't have to have a diploma, but I have no excuse for not expanding my learning. And so
Nice.
that's who wrote the book, why I published the book, the illustrator, and the man about whom this book is written. So
Wow.
ask me some questions so I can tell you.
Yes. As you were talking about all this, the whole process, you know, this is a book that we're recommending to people to consider as a Christmas gift to their families.
Ah,
And I'm
yes,
just thinking about the gift of family in itself,
yes. Mhm.
because it seems to have been portrayed really strongly through this book, a family that learns together, stays together. Um, there might be people who would be watching this and saying, "Ooh, I'd like to get a copy of that book," but also wondering, my family doesn't really learn together. What tips would you have for them, please?
Well, one of the main tips that I would have for them would be one, to consider the assignment that was given to us in that class
Okay.
and try it. And because I'm a teacher who often gives homework, ask any of my students, they'll tell you always give homework. At the end of the book, I include an assignment
Mm-hmm.
that says, write a poem about someone special to you.
Mm.
And people said, well, how would I do that? I said, how do we get to know people? Not just from what we see,
Yeah.
but sometimes from the fragrances, the odors that
Mm-hmm.
we connect with them. Sometimes it's from the food
Yeah.
that they prepare. It
Yeah.
may be from a cologne
Mm-hmm.
that a man wears or a woman wears. It may be for flowers or herbs or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But consider two things. One, answer in anything that you write about this special person. We call it the 5 W's and H.
Mm-hmm.
Who is this person?
Yeah.
What has he or she done with you or for you that makes you think they're special?
Mm.
Where did this happen? When did it happen? Why is this person important to you? And how are you going to portray him or her in this book?
Mm.
That's fine. But also appeal to the 5 senses.
Yeah.
What does a person look like? What
Mm.
does a space look like?
Mm.
What did you smell? Tell me what it smelled like. And this is one of the times when people say, oh, that smells like grandma's cooking. My questions is, what's grandma's cooking smell like?
Yeah.
Well, was she always used? And then you mentioned some of the herbs or spices that were being used.
Yeah.
We also ask them to consider the sense of touch. It may be the touch of an embrace. It may be a touch of a chair. It may be the touch of something that they gave you as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
But also, what did it sound like? What did you hear?
Yeah.
And this may be quoting something that the special person has said, but it also may be the sound of their voice. But we also ask them to consider the taste. What's something that you recall? It may be something that you ate. It may be something that happened in your mouth when you thought about something good or something bad. But by the time the student or the family considers this special person in terms of the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, and how, but also recreating a scene with that special person that appeals to the 5 senses, they find that they have quite a bit to write about.
Mm.
And so we said, when you think about this special friend, what do you see in your mind when you think about that person? What odors or spices or fragrances do you remember? What about the music? Is there a particular kind of music or a piece of music that comes to mind when you think about this person? Was there a noise that was always there? Many people have families that have pets,
Mm.
and they may remember the pet
Yeah.
uh, mewing or barking or clacking across the wooden floor. But what do you remember touching,
Yeah.
feeling? And then favorite foods. And I also ask them to add a picture
Okay.
of this special person.
Yeah.
And sometimes choosing the picture to put in will evoke new memories. And so I'm glad you asked about Christmas giving. You want a gift that keeps on giving, a picture book that tells a story,
Yeah.
pictures that tell a story, and then an assignment that folks who are reading can create for and with one another. So
Mm.
read the book,
Yes.
write your own.
Thank you. I really like how you pull that all together, you know. And I know that people can go to your website and Amazon as well to get copies of your book.
Correct. This book is available in the print form, but it's
Mhm.
also available in digital form as an ebook.
Okay.
And sometimes that comes in handy when families may want to meet on Zoom and one person is showing the book, and they may decide to do it as a group project. Some families can gather in one place on the holidays.
Yeah.
Other times, because they live all over the world, the country, or even the state, like last Christmas, our family couldn't get together because of the snow.
Yeah. Okay.
We met on Zoom.
Nice.
We didn't write this story on Zoom,
Yeah.
but it's something that families could consider doing. But they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't necessarily have to do it for Christmas.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, they may
Nice.
choose to do it for Mother's Day
Yeah.
or a birthday. And from the things that you have written and people that you've had on this program, they'll see lots of opportunities to write for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we say. Think
Yeah.
about a special person, write about that special person, and
Mm-hmm.
share it.
Yeah.
My grandfather had passed before I wrote the book,
Mm.
but I was able to share it with my cousins, and they said, I don't remember Grandpapa like that. I said,
Oh,
now you know another side of him.
that's nice. Yeah. Wow. 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 Thank you so much, Miss Anna, for sharing this book that keeps giving. I really appreciate your joining me in the Quip Corners Book Corner to share it.
Thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to share it with you. And you're such a receptive audience for it that I'm hoping that those who tune in will realize that you honestly want people to read more, but you also encourage us to write more. Perhaps the most important, you encourage us to give credit to the God who has given us people like my grandfather that we want to write about. And so I thank you and wish you well. You're teaching me how to be a better person by listening and asking questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am. God bless you. Always, always a blessing and a delight talking with Miss Anna. Did you see how her teaching juices just came through? Here we are talking about a book she's written, but her teaching vibes were all over the place. Well, please consider buying a copy or more of her book, and you'll really truly receive a gift that keeps on giving. Thanks again for joining us. God bless you. I know.